Huan Ying Lai Dao, British football guy. And that was for our Chinese fan base, which is actually number 3 in our viewings after the US and the UK. So thank you, China, for listening in. And if you are doing a Chinese fantasy football league, best of luck to you. And this is actually going to be the college football show. Sorry, the college football episode, and we're going to be talking about Pro-Rel. And welcome back, Ben.
Welcome back, me. I really hope that you actually looked up the proper form of language there. I don't know if it was Mandarin or there's a bunch of dialects, but really hope that was the correct pronunciation of whatever those words were.
How inappropriate of you. How inappropriate.
Thank you.
Where's my cancelled button? Cancelled! Yeah, it is interesting to see where the viewership comes from. But
that's crazy.
All our episodes are about kind of growing football and making it more exciting. We do appreciate the feedback that we do get to the emails and also the polls. So because we are talking about college football Pro-Rel, promotion and relegation, just as a little bit of a stat, we had, I think, 18% on the poll that we did. So I think we had about 200 people that voted on this. We had 18% said yes, they would approve of doing Pro-Rel for the NFL if it was done properly. People would say then there was about 10% that said maybe, and then what we're left with, like, overwhelmingly 72% said stop smelling bath salts. So I
was really surprised by that. Yeah. Really surprised. So I want to know how much of football they've actually watched, or NFL they've actually watched in their life, but it's a decent sample size to go with. I guess I'm one of the few when I thought I was one of the many.
Well, this is it. So I
figured that it would be a good idea.
The sample size that I use is a Reddit for NFL UK, and I actually thought that would be a really good one for that because we have Pro-Rel in all of our, or the majority of our sports. So I thought they would actually, like you said, I thought it'd be higher. Still no news from the XFL. They haven't emailed us back about our process or thoughts or proposal of bringing XFL to the UK. So, but to be fair, The Rock was in the Amazon on a jungle cruise.
He's been busy.
So
he's been busy.
Maybe when he's
been
back
out
from that. Cool. So, yeah, it's been a little while since we've been speaking to each other. And obviously, depending when we release this one, it's probably going to be in between some of the. Well, basically, the episodes are going to come thick and fast until the start of the NFL season. So today we are going to talk about CFL. But before I get into that, I did want to speak to you and say, have you had any? How many fantasy teams are you in this year?
So far, none, which I'm happy about, to be honest with you.
What, you're not doing
fantasy?
I'd rather
watch it. Usually, if I get into a fantasy team, it's not usually like we don't do our draft. We won't actually sign up until like week 3 of the preseason. It's all very last minute.
Oh, okay.
And preseason's usually not involved in any of it. But that doesn't mean I don't look at it. I still like to watch everything and see where everything's going. What usually happens is if the Packers start having a shit season, I stop playing my fantasy team because I don't want to talk about football anymore.
That's not going to be good for the podcast, if that happens. And also, good job I didn't do the previews to all the positions with you. So, since you've clearly not looked at anything on fantasy, but I wanted to run through my team with you. And that I've done. So I mean, for this year, most have ever been. It's too much. I think 2 is a perfect number because you end up having competing players. However, I did run through a strategy with Logan on some of the pieces that we're doing. So again, depending when we air this, you can see what that strategy comes out with. So quarterback, this was the only position that messed up my strategy. In fact, I wanted Russell Wilson, and he got picked up 2 picks before I was about to pick him, which was, in my eyes, would have been the perfect draft. So this is a 10-person league, and it is the neighborhood fantasy league that I'm doing, which is a brand new one. Sidebar: the commissioner who set it up was late to his own draft.
He's doing well.
He's doing well.
Off
So
very hot.
and I think there's about 4 of us that are actually doing it live, and the rest were auto drafting. So we'll see. I think it was $10 or $20. I can't remember. It's not a big one. But anyway, so Jalen Hurts, one of my sleeper picks for this year, breakout candidate, a little bit kind of like a Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson type of, have a big year. Wide receiver number 1, DK Metcalf. That's why I wanted Russ, because I wanted them to link up. And I was what pick was I here? Oh, it was pick number 1.
I was going to ask you what pick you were.
I was pick number 1.
First pick?
First pick.
Russell Wilson as your first pick, or you take DK? Or would you pick a running back first? Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. So let me have a think of how I did this. So I did, first pick, I took Christian McCaffrey. That's...
Yeah, okay.
I don't think you can... The only other...
Easy picks.
Yeah, it was either that or Dalvin. I still think that would have been not as good choice. So I went for Christian McCaffrey.
I'm a big Derrick Henry fan.
Yeah, I like...
Henry's for fantasy.
Yeah, I think with the top 4, including Kamara, I don't think you can go wrong. I really don't. Mm-hmm. So I think that's it. If you're in a top 4 pick, you're good. I think that's where you realistically need to be when I've been doing this mock draft. So went McCaffrey, then I went Metcalf. Did I do that? Yeah, I did do that. And then I went Edwards-Helaire. So I had 2 really strong running backs. And then I got Cooper Kupp. And then Kyle Pitts. And then I went with T. Higgins. And then I think I went with Jalen Hurts. I'm not sure if I got Jalen Hurts first or T. Higgins.
Yeah. You may have switched those.
And then the bench, which I'm really happy about. Team. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty. 2 really good running backs, 2 sweet-ass wide receivers. That was the only thing. If I got Russ, it was going to be the kind of the double points on DK. But then my bench... after doing mock drafts, this is where I think it comes into its own. So I have Deebo Samuel, wide receiver. Then I have Javonte Williams, running back for Denver, who I think is going to be big. Michael Carter, big potential breakout running back at the Jets. Matt Stafford. So I'm going to kind of go back and forth with Jalen Hurts and Matt Stafford, because I also have Cooper Kupp. So they could have, if they have a good connection, double points. And then finally, Jerry Jeudy and Mike Williams. So, and then
good.
Nobody gives a shit about kicker or defense. But that's my.
What are they saying? Is Jeudy going to get the ball a lot this year?
Well, I don't know who else they've got on wide receiver. Cortland Sutton, maybe.
Maybe I had to look at that team.
It's always that kind of second year breakouts, right? Of like who comes good. I think what was DK second year last year. So I think it's that. I think it is that second year piece that I've gone for. So that's my first team that I draft. I've got one this Saturday and one the next Saturday. This one Saturday is a 12 person, and I'm picking 8th, and it is not a nice place to pick because all the good running backs are gone. You might get Aaron Jones. In one mock draft, I got Nick Chubb, which I was really happy about. It's really, and I tell you what, I don't know if this is going to work, but I would, if anybody, especially our Chinese fan base, is interested in giving me an answer to this. I've been looking at getting Tyreek Hill first, Mahomes second, so you've got that dynamite exchange, right? And then...
Are they going to be available then?
Yeah.
How's the mock draft's been going with those? At the 8th spot, and then you've got another 8 picks in between after your second pick.
Yeah, I mean, I'm picking. Well, I think it's 5 picks. I'm picking ahead on both of them, but the alternative would be I could do Kelsey and Mahomes, which might be a better piece.
So you just try to get a good matchup.
Trying to get a good matchup.
Person-to-person matchup there. Yeah.
Right, because it's such in our 8th pick out of 12, it's not a good position to be. The running backs aren't particularly good there. Or I'm picking up like Kyle Pitts with my 4th or 5th pick round, and I'm drafting earlier for him as well. just to make sure. And I'm putting a lot of faith in Kyle Pitts this year for Falcons. So,
are you playing PPR leagues?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I would not worry too much about any running back, quarterback matchups then.
Yeah.
Just make sure you go for your wide receiver. And that, I mean, unless you've got like, I'm trying to think of one off the top of my head where they always dump it off to the running back in the backfield and then he runs. I would not worry about, because you're not going to be maximizing your points then if you're playing a PPR.
Yeah, exactly.
But, yeah, that's what I'd say.
So anyway, that's my strategy. It's not a good pick, and then I'm still waiting on the big league that we do, which I think is going up to 100 this year. That one again, it's 12 people, so at least I've been kind of running where these strategies are. But I usually with 4 teams, I'm trying to keep a lot of the same players. So if it is Kyle Pitts, we'll see. But anyway, should at least get one fantasy team together. Since you're doing the podcast.
Easy peasy. I mean, I'm still interested in fantasy. I did 2 12-person leagues last year.
Do you know what it's like? It's like being a personal trainer at a gym and then not actually working out yourself.
Do as I say, not as I do. That's what a good doctor once told me.
Right, okay.
He's fat. Fat and healthy.
So let's talk about Pro-Rel college football. So college football starts on the 28th of August. There's a few teams that week that start. I think it's a Thursday night or Friday night, whatever that falls on. So realistically, from recording, we're recording on the 11th of August right now, so just a little bit over 2 weeks. Why I like college football? Well, particularly I think it adds to Saturdays. I really got into college football when I lived in Denver, and we didn't have as much to do. So Saturdays would be taken up with watching college football, but also the betting aspect. And every year I've probably made not huge money, because I don't put huge money into it, but quite safely $200 into my Bitcoin just from college football, and about the same from.
You're coming out positive. You're coming out positive $200. You think?
Yeah, positive. Yeah. Net 200 for both NFL and that, and then I put it in Bitcoin. And when I put it in Bitcoin, I wait for the price of Bitcoin to drop down, because until beginning of September, Arizona's only legalizing sports betting. So even though it's a legal way to do it, you have to put it on Bitcoin and then take income tax after that, or capital gains tax after that.
Yeah.
But anyway, you put it at the right time. So you put $400 in, say at $15,000 for Bitcoin, it goes up to 60, and you get a decent return. And that's I joke about this a lot, but actually that's what bought the Peloton, was my fantasy earnings and betting earnings, put it into Bitcoin, bought the Peloton.
Yeah, if you did it last year, you would have gotten a pretty decent return.
Mm-hmm. That's what I did. So that's kind of a bit of the betting tips. And usually, I know you went to Indiana University are always good for a bit of a surprise win. I mean, they actually did really well last year.
Well, last year we were definitely good for some surprises. I'd say the year before, we win about half or just under half of our games. So yeah, and some of those are against some of the larger Big Ten teams, right?
They have an upset. They have an upset in them every time against one of the top 25. So, so look, we did do a bit of an intro into. I think we did a Getting Paid to Poop episode on OU and UT. And look, there's still a lot about college football that I don't really know. But this year, hopefully, we're going to see a lot of ASU games when it gets a little bit cooler. But Pro-Rel. So how would it potentially work for college football, and why would it potentially work? Because when we talked about this offline, you said it's a better fit for college football than NFL, because you've already got that infrastructure there.
You do have the infrastructure there as far as like the number of teams required to have a decent Pro-Rel. Remember in the NFL when we were going to have to expand the leagues and actually make it viable there. So the NCAA is broken up into like several divisions. The main divisions are Division 1, 2, and 3, and then you get into like the weird NAIA, and it gets smaller and smaller from there. But the biggest things, it doesn't work necessarily within the current parameters of the divisions, because what makes up the NCAA divisions, Division 1, it's based off of total student population. There's some budgets in there, and if you're in Division One, you have to sponsor X amount of men's and women's sports. So you can see how that can be costly for the university.
Wow.
They have to have a certain number of sports, and it's always at least equal for boys to girls, or men to women's sports, or the women's can be tiered up one. So if you have for Division One, you need a total of 14. So it can be 7 men's sports and 7 women's sports, or it can be 6 and 8 for the women. 8 being the women's side. So it has to be equal or greater for the women. So basically, you can't have schools that just dominate and sponsor every male sport there is known.
Got you.
So they have that equality built in there. And it's, like I said, it's primarily based off of student population. And I can't remember the budget on the sports or the total, what the college brings in as a total, or the university brings in as a total. There's a money aspect there as well.
So wait, the budget is
that's
split.
How the NCAA...
It's a budget split between all of those sporting leagues. So if there's 14, let's say you've got 8 of the women's, but the football's obviously going to bring in most likely the most. I'm probably assuming here, but that's going to bring in the most. But let's just say they bring in 100 million, and no, let's just say 140 million for number's sake. Every single one of those would get 10 million.
The distribution of money over the sports doesn't matter.
Okay.
They just have to be like enrolled in the NCAA Division One, like female lacrosse. Where they have to be enrolled in that. They don't have to put as much money in the lacrosse as they do the XYZ.
So
I think there's a money aspect in there. I don't know the ins and outs. It's like very small paper rule, but initially, basically what the reason for this is it puts larger schools, bigger student populations, they have more money coming in, they can afford better recruits, they can afford Division One. You see a lot of the full scholarships offered. Break it down to Division Two, you don't see full ride scholarships very often. I think they exist, but those schools, they have smaller budgets, they have smaller student populations, right? It's mainly to keep the same level of capability of recruitment to be playing against each other. But I was thinking about that when we did the NFL thing, and I was like, that's kind of like what we're talking about with Pro-Rel with the Premier League, though. Like, if you go to the division below, you don't make as much money anyway. Mm-hmm. You don't have smaller towns that you can pull from because you can actually pull from anywhere. But you have smaller money coming in.
Sorry, just getting an alert in that we have a severe dust storm warning in the area.
Really
pull aside and stay alive. Okay, so sorry.
It would have been nice for the live call-in from the Rock. Just to accept the XFL to the UK.
Oh, that was it. Just the vibrations was a Rock saying, "Ollie, you are on, my friend." Yeah, we're in monsoon season right here, so that makes sense. Like, yeah, if it drops a league, you won't get as much money, so you have to be even better with your recruitment. Like, you've got to be a little bit more creative.
Correct. Right? So I mean, you've got to be more creative. It also makes for better stories when like a smaller school, smaller student population, could go against, like, they make it against your Clemson or maybe your Alabama. However they do their rate, they're able to get up into those other ones. But you can see how the NCAA structure kind of mirrors, not on purpose, but it mirrors the difference between Premier, Championship, and is it League One right after it? Mm-hmm. And then there's several, like, not on purpose, but it kind of mirrors that, where the Championship is they don't get as much money. They're probably smaller teams. They probably have smaller budgets in general. It doesn't really need anything to do with the town size, right? But it's already got that kind of funneled down approach. I think if you wanted to apply it to NCAA football, it wouldn't be difficult. You've already got that structure there. I think you'd have to decide on how many teams go up and down, and obviously you'd have to get rid of or expand or think differently about how the conferences work. Because you got the SEC, the ACC, Big 10, Big 12, all that stuff, and that's just like for the Division One. I'm not really into like how the Division Two conferences work. They could be the same or different, but like you'd have to change up how you're actually playing those games, or certain teams with not as certain win record relegated, and the ones below in Division Two get promoted.
Yeah.
And XYZ, you just have a cutoff like that, and because you've already got a pretty decent structure on how games are played. There are so many college teams, you would not be able to have a fair point system where they play each other twice, right? There's just too many. It'd take 4 years to finish all the games per season.
So how many D1 teams are there, off the top of your head?
Off the top of my head, no idea, but I can do a quick search. That's a great
Okay,
question.
let's do this. Okay, before we search, I'm going to guess and you guess and see where we end up at.
I won't push enter,
Okay. Wait, you already did?
but I'm gonna say no. I haven't pushed.
Oh,
enter
I haven't.
Yet. Google is literally finishing my sentence.
I'm going to say 70.
I think it's gonna be close to like, well, we play them all on the same weekend. I don't think you're far off. I think that there's gonna be actually like 80, 90. Oh,
125.
well,
Oh,
neither of us went over.
right.
125 Division One schools.
And then
Wow,
169 D2.
that is nuts.
Yeah, I wasn't aware
Wow.
of that.
So that's crazy. So you probably have the opposite of what we did in the NFL. NFL, we needed to expand the leagues. CFL or CFL. Yeah, CFL. Sorry. You need to trim it down. But what you have was what I wanted to talk about is that structure and would it work? If you invited some teams in, or if the teams wanted to play in that kind of a league versus the traditional NCAA league, right? So cut it down, maybe just not invite Division III, and then you expand between the two Division I, Division II schools. You have different ladders there, right? You have that working in there, but
There's
I like the idea of the big schools being able to drop down because they're in Division I only because they have such big schools. Like for us, Indiana University, we were not good at football for quite a while. We get really good comebacks since we hired our new coach. We probably would have fallen down a couple divisions. I guarantee it.
I'd probably say
Right.
Michigan would be looking at that right now. You know, it's falling
Wolverines,
down.
yeah, I mean they're on a downward spiral, right?
Like Michigan,
How far down would
Harbaugh, right? One of the
Harbaugh,
Harbaugh
yeah.
brothers. Like, I watched a little bit of his All or Nothing, but it pissed me off, so I stopped watching it. And I think I don't know how he's still there. I know he was a Michigan quarterback himself, but I look at it and think this is supposed to be a big school. They don't beat any of the other big schools. They sometimes just over the last 3 or 4 years have squeezed past some really people that should perform. And if you look at the recruitment on who they're getting in terms of star rankings from high school, they should be way up there. So there's something amiss. But that would be a team that I think would be, or a college that would be potentially dropping down. But here's the thing, and
dropping.
this is something that I was thinking about when you were going through this. With OU and UT, they're going to the SEC.
Yeah, they just got over to the SEC, which is it's weird how many schools I've seen switch in the last 10 years versus the first 10 years I watched college football. It's insane.
So it's
Never used to
relatively
happen.
fluid.
Now it's happening.
It's relatively fluid, right?
It used to be. It's new. That's new-ish.
So imagine if Rangers and
part is, yeah.
Celtic in the Scottish football division said, we're going to move over to the Premier League. And they'd probably be in the bottom half of the Premier League, or if not a relegation fight, in all honesty. But then what does it do to the Scottish League? Well, you might say, well, look, let's get the Cardiff and Swansea. Do they want to come over to the Scottish Premier League? And it starts this whole thing. So it's very loose. Now, when you're talking about budgets and things like that, and if it's a D1 school, it all comes from TV rights and maybe attendance revenue. Is there anything else?
Donors.
Donors?
People donate to the schools as well. Like, it's still not. I'd have to get into the nitty gritty on what the budgets are, or how much money is being spent on the D1s versus like the D2s. In there, I wouldn't necessarily. It's one of the finer points. One of the bigger things is the student population and how many sports they actually have to sponsor to qualify to be in a D1 or whatever D2. And they don't just get. For example, right now, if a D2 just sponsors more sports, that doesn't get them to be D1. They have to apply for it. They have to get reviewed. They have to make sure they follow the D1 standards. So that in there would be where the money goes. And that's part of the review process.
Okay, so that makes sense. But with the donors, and obviously only now college footballers can earn money, obviously not directly from the college, but why would you donate? Why would you donate?
So one, you get tax breaks if you donate so much money. So a lot of rich people love to donate back to their alma mater. So they're going to get their tax break there on that. As well, if you're going to donate your money, if you want to support your school, and if you're a big donor, you usually get like perks like going to the games for free, you'll get special treatment, XYZ. But a
big
lot
boy.
Of people, if big people come from Alabama, like they want Alabama to be good. They put their money back into Alabama.
That's
weird.
interesting.
I don't think I'd ever. I don't have that tie where like I don't bleed red because I went to IU. Like I do watch IU sports very like.
Well, you do.
With
You
a
do.
lot of emotion.
You do bleed red. Just
yeah,
so
that's
you know.
not why. Right. Well, let's not get into that. Difference in blood color due to oxygen or not. Right, like we'll get different podcasts, different day. But like I don't have that kind of tie to my school like what you find in the people in the South, which makes sense because they're also tend to be a lot better at football down here. So they're very, very into the sport and they like to give the money back. There's a lot of money down here as well for the industries.
Yeah.
They just pump it back into the schools. And usually you don't have a ton of $1 million donors.
Okay.
Right. And those $1 million, the big donors like for example, where I'm from, John Mellencamp, big artist, music artist, he donated a ton because he lives in India, actually not very far from where I went to school. He donated a bunch to the athletic program and the whole pavilion the indoor pavilion where the football team practices, that's called John Mellencamp Pavilion.
Right.
So they name stuff after you and his name's all over the wall as well, kind of thing. So like there's different perks and however you want to look at it. I don't know if I don't name on a wall or anything, but like people who have too much money, what are they going to do with it?
I mean, I'm sure if it was like the Hollywood Arena when I was at college, going to that college, that would be sweet. Now, it's all right.
Yeah,
I'm married.
But you do it. It's also, I've got a feeling as well. If you haven't watched the college admission scandal thing on Netflix, this will probably tie into there. But donate a bunch of money. You plan to have kids. You've got a little one. You want to donate a whole bunch to ASU, Arizona State, whichever one you're on. Hey, one of the things they ask is, were your parents alumni? They will look that up and see how much they donated.
It's interesting because
now that's not a formal rule, but like, donate more, get invited to more events, get to know people. Oh, by the way, my daughter's coming to school in 2 years. Be on the lookout. Hey, nudge.
Got you. Yeah, we do get letters from ASU and McGill coming through, just say, hey, would you like to donate? I'm like, what? No, why? I'd like to spend this money on on Pokemon cards.
No thanks.
Okay, so we got off topic, but okay, that gives me a little bit more context into why the money piece comes in. So here's a question that I have for you. So what I didn't realize was, if you move to the SEC from the Big Ten, or within the Big 12.
No, they were maybe 12. They were in another Southern division.
Well, if you do that, all of the sports move with you. It's not just football.
Correct. There was one weird one where I think Notre Dame moved some of theirs, and then where the football was playing in their league. Which normally, yes, when the school moves, everything moves. There's only been that example from Notre Dame that I can think of off the top of my head.
So that, considering that, would you have to, like, from D1 to D2? So let's say football gets dropped to division lower. What would that do for, say, volleyball or track and field? Do they drop down?
I wouldn't.
Or would you just keep it separate?
They're independent.
Yeah,
you'd have to keep those separate, which would also make it a lot more fun. Well, it'd make it more interesting for the student body. All of a sudden, you've got field hockey, which I never watched until I started filming for the CBS Sports of college sports called Big Ten University, where we live streamed all of the different kinds of sports. Got to film women's field hockey. It was intense. It was awesome.
You pervert.
There were like 10 people in attendance.
You absolute pervert. Yeah. All of them were perverts.
Field hockey team. What of your field hockey team? I'm just not even going to pay attention to that. The field hockey team got promoted from the bottom league upwards, right? All of a sudden, you're like, hey guys, we should go watch this. It's going to be great. and then you have that much more student. What do you call it? People who like their school. I was going to call it patriotism because I'm American, but
yeah.
that much more camaraderie for the student body rather than like, oh yeah, by the way, our field hockey team got XYZ. Like, where I went to school, our soccer team or football for you, we won we won the whole thing, the NCAA tournament a couple times recently. We always make it at least the Final Four, and this don't have the biggest student body attendance other than some of the people that just watch soccer.
Yeah.
Right now, so there's a bigger deal made out of it. Like, it'd be good. We've sent a couple of players up to the MLS right out of school as well. We had one guy actually, he was getting looked at by Celtic, of all people. I think he actually was over there, and then Celtic put him back on loan to an MLS team. But there's the things that are happening out there, and it's just students don't come together for it. It'd be really good for the fans to have just extra excitement about that stuff.
Nice.
Where I think any reason for the college kids to have that kind of huts or not chutzpah about it, but like I think the camaraderie was the right term. You can hear me get excited about it because I would have gone to so many more like events.
Got a special guest.
We have a guest.
Can you say dog? That's her only word she can say.
You say dog. Well, she can't hear me.
She's just.
If you can't understand or see what's going on because we don't have video for our podcast on.
Yeah, so this is my.
Ollie's little one has just taken over.
What do you think to college football? Go Sun Devils! Oh, watch this! Touchdown! Touchdown! Come on, I know you can do it. Touchdown! What do we do when we see touchdown? Say like you're embarrassing me in front of all our Chinese guests. Touchdown! Okay.
Like Ollie needs to be doing some more homeschooling.
We'll come back to that. So what? Okay, can you summarize this for me? Give me the top 3 benefits of college football doing Pro-Rel, and then 3 potential blockers.
Yeah, so I think the positives, the excitement would be giving smaller schools a little bit more of a potential for limelight. I think anytime you can have a Cinderella story, even if they're beating a smaller Division I school, or what we would call currently smaller, it's an exciting way for them to have different types of exposure. I think it's exciting for the players as well to be able to play for that, or exposure. It's just another way to create a storyline. So if those that are listening, we like sports. We like storylines in sports.
So to that point,
that's why we watch sports. Yeah,
that's a really good point. So Jamie Vardy, who was at Fleetwood Town, which is like I think like a League Two.
Oh yeah.
Was at League Two at the time. He got picked up by Leicester, who were in the Championship. They got promoted. A couple of years later, he won the Premier League, then got an England cap, and he would have never been, because of that promotion relegate, you know what I mean? Like, so I think his first England cap was like at the age of 28, 29. Like, he wasn't young. He was really good, but that's the same thing. If you think you're, I never get the freshman's right or sophomore, but if he was a freshman coming up and then being a senior and worked up the way, and I mean, look at Brady. Brady came off the board.
I was gonna say Brady was really pretty good in college. He was, I think his overall record, I looked it up, he was 40-9 in his Michigan days, but he was a shit pick. He was what, I think 16th round pick or something like that in the NFL.
It was really late, yeah.
Oh yeah. But he was pretty good in college. I think he was amongst a pretty good recruiting class, but he was actually good when you go back and look at it. Just at that time, nobody was really shouting about him.
So you've got the first
he was
point.
He was the 199th pick.
Oh, yeah, exactly right. And then he made his name.
Yeah.
So if you think about this, so you've got first reason would be exposure to the school and excitement for the school.
So, yeah. Which includes the students.
Okay.
I mean, I'll include like the student population on that too. For the school, it makes more people want to go to your school as well. Like, so I'm going to go for students and school because those are kind of in one. Because I was going to do students as my third one, but let's combine those. For the players to create some more storylines as well, more exposure, or just creates a different atmosphere around, like, I believe this school can go XYZ and we can break into this, we can do that. And then the third top, I think, probably for the betting and the viewership in general. Right? There's actually just more to watch.
Right.
There's a lot of college football to watch as is. But, like, what if you put an extra layer on that? How crazy would it be?
Yeah, like Clemson
You could
versus
bet.
Alabama, and one year for some reason, Alabama is potentially going to get relegated. It'd be like the most watched
Yeah.
after American Idol.
Yeah. Maybe. We like our American Idol. I think the cons of, like, the reservations is we've learned there's a lot of schools. Like, it'd be very difficult to do as much in the fantasy world I'd like to live in. And you'd have to exclude some things. I think maybe the difference between, like, football being separate from basketball, being separate from baseball, that might not be as exciting as I would hope it to be. Like, you've got your big three sports are all crap. Basically, if you're a university or you're a student at a university, your bottom division, your big threes, your college, your football, baseball, and basketball. But you've got these other little ones that are really popular. D1. Is it really that big of a deal? Like, do you really care? Does it, like, actually have the intended effect? I don't know if it would. And then another challenge on that would be actually watching all of it, like, and consuming all of the media that would come out with everything. It'd be very difficult, and it could be, like, overwhelming to a point where it demotivates.
There's just,
like, I'm a big esports person. I follow lots of different esports, and my biggest barrier to entry on watching anything new in that realm is there's already a lot going on.
Yeah.
It's almost a fatigue thing.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Yeah, I feel that's the same with XFL. When I started watching that, I was like, ugh.
There was a lot, yeah, and it was only one league, and there was not very big.
Yeah, no, that's true. Was that two con?
Yeah.
I mean, any other cons or?
No, that was three. So, like, the first one was the actual feasibility of it.
Yeah.
The actual feasibility of it. Second one was, would it even have a desired effect if still your bigger sports, if they were bad, but, like, you still had some of the other ones really good, would it even still matter if they were separated like that? Or would you, and the last one would be, would we have an overwhelming amount of content to watch, which would create a fatigue, and then people might die away from it and just go back to watching NFL or watching just, like, one team and be done with it.
Yeah, fair. Well, look, I think that's a good summary. There's going to be changes, right? We know there's going to be the proposals for expanding the playoffs. I think that would be a good step in the right direction. College players can earn money. Again, how they cope with that money and that fame isn't necessarily going to be... It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I think that'd be good. But my biggest thing, if we wanted to do it right now, get us closer right now, I would like to see less conferences and more just, like, larger conferences. So you just see more teams playing each other, essentially.
Yeah.
Just to get things in the mix, and you can start stacking up different types of schools together, because you have just a bunch of random conferences now that things have changed a little bit over the last 10 years. They all used to be quite regional, and now it's spreading out and becoming, like you mentioned, liquid or a little bit more fluid. So I think initially, if I wanted to see anything today off of the back of like how close we could get to actual pro, it's just less conferences. So more teams are playing against each other in the same realms and actually pitting themselves against each other. And then you can have a bigger playoff season.
Yeah, I like that. Well, look, I'm excited for the college football to come back. Last year, it's been a year without it. So realistically, like, there was definitely an asterisk against everybody's
It'll be
season.
interesting this year as well. Yeah, it'll be an interesting one this year as well, as everything's we thought was getting better, then it gets worse, then it gets better, then it gets worse. So with students all going back to university, I mean, all hell could break loose again, and we have another asterisk season. But that was interesting because some of the smaller schools got to come out and make some storylines. So we'll see, as long as it's not a detriment to anybody's health. But it could be another one of those years with a weird playoff look, basically, or a weird potential for everybody's on the conference finals.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, hopefully not, but yeah, there's definitely a potential. Well, that was the what if college football had Pro-Rel. Join us again for the next episode, which I'm sure is going to be about the previews on fantasy football. And then we'll probably come back and maybe do a review on the Not Madden 21, because I know we've had that one on the horizon for a while. Perfect. All right. Thanks, Ben. We'll speak to you all soon.